Greetings, I'm Craig Smyser with 1835 Realty. Behind me is a house that we just put on the market, but the house itself is not the reason for this video, so where we're at doesn't make a difference. We're going to talk today about the process of selling a house that has been ordered for sale by a court. All right, in this case, it's the Travis County Probate Court, and I've done a lot of these over the years. So what we're going to do is, as we walk through the house, which is actually fairly typical of what we see in these situations, I'm going to point some things out about the house, but also explain to you the entire process. So let's get started. So one of the first things you see, we've got an abandoned car in the driveway. So sometimes the court will authorize it to be towed away, sometimes they won't, and it becomes an issue for the buyer to deal with. The other thing you're going to start to see as we look around is that the house is not in great shape. No one has lived here for years, or someone has lived here who hasn't maintained it. In most cases, in these situations, no one has lived in the house for several years. So it's not uncommon for it not to be in great condition. So as you come in, one of the first things you're going to notice is that there's a lot of stuff in here. And this is generally the way it works. So let's just presume this house is like most of them where no one's lived here for years. So you're going to find there's a lot of things. Then the court doesn't authorize any expenditures for having this hauled away. So all of these things are here and become the responsibility of the buyer to deal with after they purchase the house. So let's talk about the process itself, which is that someone passes away, nobody steps forward to probate the estate, and therefore nothing happens from a legal standpoint. The mortgage obviously stops being paid, and eventually the mortgage company wants to be paid, so they're going to be sending out notices, but eventually, probably around the 4 or 5 month mark, they're looking to foreclose. But then they're going to learn that the owner has passed away. And while it's easy to foreclose in Texas, it is not easy to foreclose against an estate, which is what this has become since someone has passed away. So now the courts have to get involved because to foreclose on an estate, you need the approval of the courts. So this gets in front of the probate court, and it generally is a process that'll take a few years. In fact, the house that we're in right now first came to my attention as part of the process 3 years ago this month. So once it goes through all the processes with the courts, the judge may determine that the house has to be sold to help settle the estate and get the mortgage company their money back. And that's what happened here, although it took a while. So the judge authorizes it to be sold, and then the attorney who the court has appointed contacts me. That's how I list quite a number of these homes in Travis and Williamson counties, is because I've done it for a number of years and the attorney likes the way I handle things. So as you've seen, the house is not in good condition, which is very often the case, right? In this one, we've got some spray paint on the walls, the blinds are all wonky, the flooring is not in good shape, and again, this is, unfortunately, a fairly common scenario. Once it's authorized for sale, I come out, I tell the court what I think it's going to sell for, and then we execute a listing agreement with the attorney that the court has appointed, and we begin the process. A house that needs a lot of rehab like this one, we start with what is it going to sell for if someone were to come in and flip it and make it into a house that you would expect to find in a neighborhood like this. And once I know how much that's going to be, I drop that off the price, and then we have to drop a little bit more because obviously if you're going to flip this house, you're going to expect to make a profit, or if you're going to be just a homeowner who buys it and is going to renovate it to live here yourself, you still are wanting a bit of what we call the sweat equity. You want some return for the time and the effort you've put into it. So that's how we determine the pricing on a home such as this one. So we put the house on the market, and it has regular showings, and everything, the process is very much the same. There are a few differences. There are no lights on. There are no utilities on at this house presently because the court will not pay for the utilities. So therefore, in this case, it's a buyer expense to turn the utilities on for both the inspections and the appraisal if the appraiser requires the utilities to be turned on. Further, this will require a final approval of the court for the contract. So that means instead of a usual 30-day close, these tend to run more along the 60-day time frame. Now, That's presuming that the judge does not require a hearing. And all the ones that I have done, the court does not require a hearing. They see that we put the house in the MLS, that we marketed, and we usually, I don't think I've ever had one that didn't receive multiple offers. As you look through here, you may think, wow, who wants to buy this house? There is tremendous demand in the Austin area for homes that can be flipped. And so regardless of the market, I have always gotten multiple offers on these. So we just, provide the judge with all the information, the number of offers received, what the attorney chose and signed. And I don't recall that we've ever had to wait for a hearing. So once the judge approves it, then we're good to go and close. And so it is a fairly traditional process with just a couple of differences, as I have mentioned. So you may be wondering, why is it that I say this house is fairly typical? You say a lot of people pass away and their houses don't look like this. Well, the reason that these houses end up in the situation they're at and I end up selling them is because there's generally no equity in them. That's why no family members step forward to settle the estate, right? There's no money to be had, and so no one sees the point in going through the actual process. So oftentimes these homes are not in good shape and more is owed on them than what the house is worth. And so many times these are not only court-ordered sales, but they involve a short sale element. Now, of course, with the way that the market has been here in Central Texas for the last few years, the values of homes are up so much that we're not dealing with short sales in these circumstances anymore. Again, though, that's also the reason why we have fewer of these homes reaching this point, is because houses have equity, so family members step forward. So that is why I say that most of these houses are in a condition such as this. So we can talk a little bit about what someone's going to do here, right? Someone's going to rip up all the flooring and they're going to put new flooring in. In this case, they had put up some drywall. They had closed up an open game room and were using it as a bedroom, I imagine, just by looking at it. So someone, I imagine, is going to open that all up, so you've got a game room. Of course, the walls all have to be painted. You're most likely, downstairs, we're not looking at it now, but the kitchen cabinets are in good shape. They'll probably be painted just because of the taste of, the trends of what's going on right now. And then there are some repairs to be done around this house. But really, it's not, structurally, most of the house, to me, appears to be in good shape. Of course, a buyer is going to have an inspection to determine that for sure. But a lot of it here looks to be somewhat cosmetic, extensive cosmetic, but really just mostly cosmetic here on this home. So I personally think this would be a great one. And I can tell you this, as an investor myself, I would love to buy a lot of these houses I have sold, but of course, that is not an arm's length transaction to the court if I were to buy these homes. But I think this one, again, I'm not going to talk specifically about the address of this house or its price or things like that. But again, this is going to be a nice one for someone to flip. We'll have multiple offers. It'll go above list price like they always do. But this will be a nice project for someone. And in case you're wondering, we're in a real nice neighborhood. It's not like we're in a neighborhood that has, it's dilapidated, that has, a lot of houses that are not in good shape. This is a very nice neighborhood, and unfortunately, this is just the condition that this house is in. So again, as you see, these are just bags of trash here in the house, and yes, we leave them here, right? It's interesting because most of the time when I list a traditional house, we have a stager go in, we have the house looking as nice as it can be, we have a professional photographer, videographer cover everything for us. But in these homes, we just sell them the way they are. That's the way the court authorizes them to be done. Again, they won't pay for anything to be hauled out. So it becomes the buyer's responsibility to do that. And so frankly, with this one, I use my iPhone to take some photos, and we put it in the MLS. And I actually do kind of enjoy that because everything we list most of the time is in great condition. And then we get these that are a little different, and it makes people say, why would you list a house like that? Why didn't they clean it up? Well, it's the circumstances. And again, I'll reiterate, there is a huge market for homes like this where buyers are looking for stuff that are in the worst shape possible, because that's going to allow them to either maximize their profit as an investor who's going to flip it, or maximize their sweat equity if they are someone who's going to fix it up and then live here themselves. So that's the process that we go through, me for selling one and you perhaps for buying a court-ordered probate property here in Travis or Williamson County. Now, I do want to mention that I recognize there are people and stories behind each one of these homes, and in some cases I do learn about those throughout the process. But the court hires me to be a professional and to do the business side of handling the sale of these homes and to obtain the maximum value for the estate, and so that's what I attempt to do each time. So if you've got any questions about the process, feel free to give me a call at 512-650-7300 or email me at craig@realestateinAustin.com. I'm Craig Smyser with 1835 Realty.